Is there anything worse than death? It may seem surreal, but there are prisons in this world that are so horrific that death would be a merciful sentence. These places are filled with unspeakable horrors that are enough to make your stomach turn. I have put together this video that reveals the 10 worst prisons on the planet. Brace yourself, because what you're about to see is not for the faint of heart. Number 10. Black Dolphin Prison, Russia. Situated on the Kazakhstan border, the name Black Dolphin comes from the statue that looms over the entrance to the prison, a twisted and haunting representation of a creature that should bring joy, but instead instills fear in the hearts of those who dare to enter. Black Dolphin only houses inmates with life sentences, and with around 700 prisoners behind its walls, the body count is staggering. Approximately 3,500 murders can be attributed to the inmates of this prison, with an average of 5 victims per inmate. But it's not just murderers who call Black Dolphin their home. Cannibals, pedophiles, terrorists, and some of the most vicious assault perpetrators in the world are locked up here, and they've made a name for themselves as the worst of the worst. Inmates are forced to share a claustrophobic space that's only 50 square feet, and the cells are secured with 3 sets of steel doors. They hardly ever leave their cells, and when they do, it's with their eyes dulled by blindfolds, forced to walk bent over and unable to see their surroundings. There's no yard, no cafeteria, no way to escape the despair and darkness that permeate every corner of this place. If hell had a physical form, it would undoubtedly take the shape of Black Dolphin Prison. Number 9. Ciudad Barrios, El Salvador. What's worse than hell? I'm afraid I have an answer for you. Meet Ciudad, the most dangerous prison in El Salvador. It's not just the decrepit conditions or the lack of basic amenities that make it a living nightmare. It's the fact that this prison is home to 2 of the world's most notorious gangs, the MS-13 and the Barrio 18 gang. If you're not a member of either gang, death can come swiftly and without warning. The living conditions in Ciudad are so horrendous that the most basic necessities such as food and shelter can quickly turn into a fight to the death. In this place, might makes right, and weaker people are destined to suffer. It's no wonder that the prison guards are terrified of entering Ciudad. The reputation for lawlessness and violence is so well deserved that the gang members have taken over the entire prison. They rule with an iron fist, imposing their own twisted code of justice on anyone who dares to cross them. Number 8. Patak Island Prison, Russia. They call it the Alcatraz of Russia, and with good reason. This place is so fearsome that even the devil himself would quake at the mere mention of it. Patak Island Prison, located in the middle of the vast Nosavero Lake, houses 193 inmates, all serving life sentences. Every inmate spends 23 hours a day locked up in a cramped 2-man cell, looking for any object that could be fashioned into a weapon or used to aid in an escape attempt. Unlike Black Dolphin, however, escape from Patak Island Prison is not even remotely possible. Inmates are never allowed out of their cells except for 1 hour per day, during which time they are confined to a small cage that allows barely enough space to pace. But the absolute horror of this place is the complete lack of basic sanitation facilities. There are no toilets, no showers, no proper sinks. Inmates are forced to relieve themselves into steel buckets and find rest on thin, uncomfortable beds. Some have even compared the living conditions on Patak Island Prison to those of a zoo in winter. The prison is surrounded by freezing waters that further contribute to its inhabitants' physical and psychological torment. Number 7. Bang Kwang Prison, Bangkok, Thailand. This is not a prison for the faint-hearted, nor a place you want to end up in by accident. This infamous Thai prison has a dark reputation that has earned it the title of one of the worst in the world. The prison is so overcrowded that prisoners are packed like sardines in the same place as death row inmates. It's not just the serious criminals that end up in Bang Kwang, though. You could be sent there for something as simple as reading the wrong book or eating a sandwich in public because tourists are not exempt from brutal punishment either. New inmates must wear iron chains for the first 3 months of their sentence, making movement practically impossible. And if you think the iron chains are the worst part, wait till you hear about the food. It's often infested with maggots, and drinking water is a luxury that most inmates can't afford. But don't think you can avoid ending up in Bang Kwang by being a good citizen or tourist. A British man was once imprisoned when a Thai gang attacked him. Even though he lost an eye and suffered severe injuries, he still had to do time in Bangkwang for fighting back. Number 6. Gitarama Central Prison, Rwanda. Originally designed to house just over 1,300 prisoners, the prison now holds a staggering 8,000 inmates who are forced to share cramped quarters and fight for even the smallest patch of ground to sleep on. Disease and filth run rampant throughout the facility, with raw sewage and feces covering the floors and walls, and many inmates succumb to sickness and suffocation. Medical care is non-existent, and even a simple injury can lead to gangrene and amputation, often performed by prisoners. But the horrors of Gitarama's central prison don't stop there. Reports of cannibalism and other unspeakable acts committed by desperate and starving prisoners are not uncommon, and the lack of documentation and oversight means that these atrocities often go unchecked. The prison guards are complicit in the brutality, treating the inmates as less than human and turning a blind eye to their suffering. Last year alone, 2,000 people died in Rwandan prisons, and most of those deaths occurring within the walls of Gitarama's central prison. Number 5. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, Kenya. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison is notorious for being home to the most dangerous criminals in Kenya. Initially constructed in 1954 as part of a colonial emergency response, the prison has since become a shadow of its former self. Despite having a capacity for only 1,200 inmates, it now houses almost 3,000 prisoners. This overcrowding has created a breeding ground for infectious diseases like HIV/AIDS, syphilis, and tuberculosis. With its original gallows still in place, the prison is a grim reminder of the harsh colonial past. The situation is further compounded by corruption and unrest, which are rife in the prison system. Since the government uses Kamiti Maximum Security Prison as a dumping ground for political dissidents, most inmates are uneducated, and the prison is plagued by fraud. Prisoners often use contraband cell phones to defraud unsuspecting Kenyan citizens of their hard-earned money. Kamiti is a place where only the fittest and most cunning survive. Number 4. Gildani Prison, Georgia. The legacy of Gildani Prison is haunting, and despite claims of improvement, it remains one of the most notorious prisons in the world. In 2012, a former prison guard turned whistleblower leaked a video documenting the horrific abuse and torture that inmates endured at the hands of the guards. Inmates were routinely subjected to beatings, drowning, and intentional bone breaking. The worst atrocities were the routine sexual abuse and sodomy with broom handles. A former inmate would recall, "They tore off my fingernails, damaged my skull, broke my leg bones, ribs, nose, and teeth. I'm 43 years old, but I look like an old man. I often fall down while I am walking." While authorities have claimed to have addressed the problems and improved conditions, the memory of Gildani's sadistic guards and their institutionalized torture lingers. The actual state of the prison today remains uncertain, and it may be best to investigate for yourself. Number 3. Mendoza Prison, Argentina. Argentina's Mendoza Prison has a section called Pavilion 5, where they keep the country's top 90 most dangerous convicts. This section is so perilous that not even God would dare to enter. The staff leave the inmates meals at designated spots near the door. While that might sound kind of cool in a twisted way, trust me, it's not. The prison is severely overcrowded, with 1,600 inmates crammed into a facility only meant to hold 600. To make matters worse, there aren't any beds, so the prisoners are forced to sleep on the floor, often subjected to random and intense torture. Prisoners don't even have access to toilets, so they're forced to use plastic bags to defecate and bottles to urinate. The corridors are often filled with a literal sewer of human waste and garbage slime. It's gotten so bad that some inmates have resorted to sewing their mouths shut in protest, hoping for better living conditions. But even that's not the worst of it. The food they're given is basically sludge, and those who aren't strong, fast, or intelligent enough often go hungry and even die under what the authorities claim are mysterious circumstances. Number 2. Diyarbakir Prison, Turkey. Diyarbakir Prison, located in Turkey, was once home to one of the most abusive regimes in the country during the 1980s and 90s, where thousands of Kurdish men and women were subjected to horrific forms of torture. During that time, it was considered the worst prison in the world. While it's now considered the second worst, conditions haven't improved. If anything, they've worsened. To make matters even worse, children are also locked up alongside the worst offenders. Inmates are subjected to physical and psychological torture ranging from beatings, sexual assault, mutilation, and even being forced to consume feces to being electrocuted in their genitalia. On the psychological side, they are made to salute the director's dog, participate in mock executions, and even bathe in the prison sewers. This situation is so dire that prisoners often go on dry fasts to protest the inhumane conditions, leading to starvation and death. There have also been reports of inmates setting their own bodies and cells on fire in acts of resistance. Number 1. Camp 22, North Korea. Camp 22 is a vast network of prison camps that spans North Korea and houses up to 200,000 prisoners. The conditions within are notoriously brutal, and only a few lucky ones make it out alive. The prisoners are subject to starvation, a daily reality that echoes the horrors of the Holocaust. Their meager diet consists of cornmeal and cabbage, forcing them to eat rats and insects. The situation became so dire that they literally ate to extinction. To make matters worse, the prison guards subject the inmates to various forms of torture for their own twisted amusement. Even little girls born in the camp are not spared. Some are fed to dogs to make them more vicious. Attempting to escape is met with severe consequences, including the torture of one's entire family, regardless of their involvement. Pregnancies are strictly forbidden, and those caught pregnant are subjected to unspeakable acts of violence, including being tied to a tree, having their fetus removed, and being shot. Death might be a better choice in such conditions, do you think? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, remember to hit like and subscribe with the notifications bell turned on so you can check out our future videos. Until next time.